Welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogram Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. I follow my guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Welcome back to the ANEW Insight Podcast. We are back for the second half of our interview with registered dietitian and Food Sleuth radio host. She really is a media icon, people. Melinda Hemmelgarn. Melinda, welcome back.
Thank you so much. I loved our part one conversation, and I'm excited to take on part two.
Me too. We really do dig in, not just to what fuels our body. I'm not going to say what we should be eating, but what fuels our body, what really makes us tick, but also all of the other forces that influence our food decisions. And I cannot wait to pick your brain some more. And so I want to talk about the role of policy in food systems. In your view, how do agricultural and food policies shape the availability and perception of healthy foods? We talked a little bit about that in the last section. And what changes would you advocate to promote better public health outcomes?
So what I learned during my Food and Society Policy Fellowship through the Kellogg Foundation, I mentioned that in part one, that it was a life-changing experience. And it was because it introduced me to agriculture policy, which is something that dietitians do not typically study. Programs may be changing now. I know there are some dietitians. I'm a member of a practice group, the Hunger and Environmental Nutrition Practice Group. The nickname is HEN. But we look at policies that influence food security, food access, policies that impact the quality of food that's available to people and how we produce it. What I learned in my fellowship is that policy is everything. And you may know people who say, oh, I don't want to talk about politics. I don't like to talk about politics. Policy is involved in every single decision we think we make every day. Mm-hmm. We think we have choices. Well, those choices or non-choices are because of policies that influence what we have available to us.
Totally.
So in part one, I talked about a policy. I talked about living wage legislation policy. That's whether or not you have to make a choice between feeding your kids or heating your house. Right? This is important. Access to housing. Housing is a policy. It makes a difference if you're homeless versus you live in a home that is safe and has a functioning stove and refrigerator. That's policy.
Absolutely. Yes.
There are larger agriculture policies like the Farm Bill. Maybe dietitians are studying that today, but certainly farm policy, never in my curriculum.
Not in mine.
But farm policy drives the kinds of foods that our tax dollars subsidize. Mm-hmm. So if our tax dollars are subsidizing corn and soy that is raised here in the Midwest largely, these are big tracts of monocultures, basically. We've seen a loss of biodiversity. We've seen pollution of our water and air. What are we producing? We are not, Big Ag tells us that they're feeding the world. What? Feeding the world what? We've got corn.
Or feeding their farm animals.
Well,
that certainly
yes, some of that corn and soy goes to feed livestock, true. And that would be largely livestock that is raised in confinements or CAFOs that pollute air and water. I know as a dietitian, I encourage children to play outside. Well, try living in one of these communities where you are surrounded by industrial agriculture. It's not safe to be outside when the spray plane comes, and it's not safe to be outside when it stinks from industrial livestock. So we have to look at policies, farm policies. And the Farm Bill is a really good place to start. There's a wonderful book. I actually brought it. It's called The Farm Bill, A Citizen's Guide. And it's by
Wow.
Dan Imhoff. And it was co-written with a fellow dietitian, Christina Badaracco. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. But this was Dan Imhoff's baby.
Yeah, Dan Imhoff is great.
He is wonderful. And you can see where our tax dollars go with regard to the Farm Bill. The largest allotment is for food assistance, it's for
Right.
SNAP. Well, who is SNAP benefiting? It's benefiting people who are living in poverty or near poverty. If we don't want to put all our tax dollars into that program, then let's pay people a living wage and make sure that they can live a life with dignity. So that's all part of the Farm Bill. And then you have
Yes.
to ask, well, who do those programs really benefit? Who does SNAP benefit? It benefits an employer or an industry that refuses to pay their employees a living wage. So if you were to go and apply for a job at Walmart, for example, you would have some assistance in knowing which federal programs to apply for, so you could basically enhance your wages through the taxpayer.
Wow.
But meanwhile, the owners of the large corporations that are not paying living wages, that keep their employees in poverty, we're talking about billionaires.
Oh, yes.
So all of this has to do with policies we have and which ones need to be tweaked. I would love to see, as I mentioned in part one, that our Farm Bill support and provide incentives and rewards to farmers who are producing the foods that we recommend in our dietary guidelines. I know you and I have both told people to fill half your plate with fruits and vegetables. Well,
Yes.
gosh darn, they're hard to find. And I like to go into neighborhoods or communities, rural communities especially, and see what kinds of foods are available to the people that live there. So you can go into a corner store in an urban area, or you can go into a supermarket in a place that you can feel the poverty. You can feel where a community's been exploited.
Yes.
And you go into the supermarket and you see what's available, and you look at the food and it's like, this isn't high quality produce. And where is it coming from? Oh, I live in the Midwest. Why do I want peaches coming from California when we can grow peaches right here in the summertime?
Right. Right.
Maybe we don't eat peaches all year long. Maybe we have the joy of anticipation and we eat things when they're seasonal. But I do believe that we need to re-regionalize our food system to a large extent. And that means not spending as much fossil fuel in bringing truckloads of food across the country when we have to look at those foods and say, which ones can I be growing here? That has to do with policy. In part one, you mentioned something about how, I'm going to use the word good food, how some foods make us feel good. Let's talk about it like that.
Okay.
When I go to a conference, I'm sure you've had this experience and you're eating that hotel food. And I remember coming home sometimes and just saying, I just want to eat a pound of kale. I needed
Totally.
to reinforce myself. I needed to get boosted with those good nutrients. That food makes me feel good. It
Yes.
supports my health. And if it's grown by my organic farmer at the farmer's market, I'm going to call that good food. It's good for me. It's raised well. It's supporting the farmer, the regional economy. But how do we introduce that before a person gets to be an adult and maybe comes to you with disordered eating? This is why the farm to school programs are so important. Policy, that is with USDA dollars that
Yes.
fund those programs. There's nothing more magical than having a school garden and having children plant a seed, the magic of a seed, nurturing that seed, growing the plant. You never have to mess with fussy people. Parents will say, oh, I've got a picky eater. Well, you wouldn't have a picky eater if that child was in the garden, growing the food,
Right.
tasting and cooking it themselves. That's the magic
Yes.
of a school garden. And of course, there are warriors who have done this work. There's the Farm to School Network is great. There's ASAP, the Appalachian Sustainable Agriculture Program. They did
Mm.
so much good work in North Carolina. Wonderful website for farm to school and books that children can read. You know, there's a school in every garden and a garden at every school. That's the mission.
Oh, I
So
love
you've
that.
got math, you've got English, you've got science right there in a
Hmm.
garden. And
Totally.
the education should not stop when a child gets to a cafeteria. So,
What are we going to do though, Melinda, when I think a lot of these programs, a lot of funding for SNAP, or I can foresee in the next 4 years, it's going to be an uphill battle, especially in more of the Midwest and the South. What can people do that continues this policy of trying to bring gardens into schools? What can people do to advocate for this if there's a lot of forces against that in the next 4 years?
well, it is not just the Midwest and the South. It is a nationwide focus.
Yeah.
All of us working, dietitians, physicians, nurses, farmers. When we were in school, and I think it's still the same way, we were siloed. There was the
Mm.
nutrition school, there was the ag school, there was the medical school. Better join forces and
Yes.
work towards policies that can nourish people, protect the land, protect against climate change. I mean, there are people who, I don't know how this is true, but there are some people who still deny that climate change is real. There are a lot of horrific climate events that we've experienced, and it's not going to get better until we make some big changes,
Yeah.
starting with the food system.
Yes.
So, what are we going to do? We are going to come together and we are going to support each other, and we are going to reach out to our elected officials who work for us. We are going to develop kind relationships with people, help educate them, help see the benefits, help taste really good tasting, good nourishing food. And we're going to help move them along with us. But we have a lot of work to do. There are huge forces working against us and a lot of money. We've got to get money out of politics. We have,
Yes.
it's
I
huge.
don't think that's going to happen, but
Well, it
I'm
won't
all
happen.
for that.
It won't happen if we don't work for it.
Yes.
So it's something that, and I think it's easy to get overwhelmed too. So what I recommend that people do is find the one thing that really motivates them. It's the way food was grown. For me, it was the way I don't like to see pesticides used in the environment. So that's what I was able to get involved with. Pick the thing that pick the thing that butters your bread and go for
Yes.
it and find your people. Don't ever work
Yes.
alone. It can be
Yes.
it's too lonely. We are hungriest for relationships. And I
Mm.
think that is why people go to farmers markets, because it's not
Yeah.
just healthy food that you're buying. It's the
Mm.
relationships there with the people who grew your
Yes.
food and your neighbors. Develop relationships with the people who are working on the issues, join organizations so that you can be a part of something bigger. It is so rewarding and it can really make a difference.
Wow. So, Melinda, I got to tell you, after a week of a lot of clients who were feeling a lot of feelings after we just had this election, you are so refreshing. And that
Oh,
was really, I think, a message I wanted to get out to my clients is that a lot of times we feel helpless and hopeless to the bigger cogs in this giant wheel of our country. And I do think that there is so much power in our dollars. There's so much power. And if we actually educate ourselves on where our dollars are going and then really trying to understand that and find ways that we can use our dollars more wisely or that promote our health. I mean, I'm anti-diet culture, and I think that there are so many companies and corporations that prey off of our deepest insecurities. And we keep shelling money in there because we're not necessarily aware. We're not necessarily peeking behind that curtain. And if people can peek behind that curtain and see that's benefiting a very small few group of people and not benefiting the larger group of people, we really can band together and create a lot of change. But it is going to take everybody on their local level. And I love that you said this, finding what butters your bread and going and volunteering or going to council meetings or really just becoming more involved. And that's what I was suggesting to my clients who are feeling a lot of confusion and despair, is that there is a lot within our control. We actually can do a lot on our local level, and that may resonate out. So I think it's really important that we have this message. So tell me, give me a picture of the challenges, however, in promoting sustainable agriculture. How can consumers support initiatives through their food choices that help promote sustainable agriculture?
So the challenge is that organic food sales have been increasing significantly as people learn more about wanting to eat food that is raised without chemical inputs. There's a lot of money then that everybody wants a little piece of, what I call big ag. And when I say big ag, I mean corporations like Bayer, who bought Monsanto, Dow, Syngenta, corporations that make a lot of money selling chemicals and fertilizers and promote this monoculture way of farming. That's a challenge because there's a lot of lobby dollars going into keeping that status quo.
Totally.
There are wonderful organizations that are working to change policies and pull back the curtain. Some of my favorite guests have actually come from US Right to Know. Both of those organizations, Friends of the Earth has put out some wonderful curtain pulling back reports to help people see really what's going on. But lobby dollars are very hard. I think sometimes it's hard we can't really buy our way out of this.
Yeah.
We can try to make good choices in the marketplace or healthier choices in the marketplace, but there are bigger forces out there. And that's really what we have to familiarize ourselves with. Getting to read some of these reports, understanding, even within our own profession, I've been so discouraged when the industry moves in and uses dietitians as mouthpieces for their messages.
Yes, and it happens a lot. The academy is inundated with those forces.
Absolutely. And state dietetic associations. You'll have a very nice man from an ag industry leader will come in and say, hey, we'll give you a free lecture and free lunch.
Of course.
There's no such thing as free lunch, right? It comes with a cost. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to be corporate mouthpieces. We want to step back and look at that bigger picture. So look at some of those organizations that I recommended, the Real Organic Project, look at Friends of the Earth, look at some of their reports, look at Beyond Pesticides. I'm happy to send you a list. US Right to Know, they've done some wonderful reports on neonicotinoids, for example, seed coatings on the majority of corn seeds that are killing our bees and impacting our own neurological health.
Oh my goodness.
So there's that. But it's bigger than just the choices that we think we make at the supermarket. If you're involved with institutional buying, you've got even more power. So there's an organization called Healthcare Without Harm that looks to make large institutional buying much more impactful. So Diane Emery, she's a fellow dietitian up in Vermont, in Burlington, working on sustainability within an institution and going to individual farms and choosing food to serve in their hospital. I got to tell you, there are people in the city of Burlington who go to the hospital to eat lunch. That's unheard of.
Wow.
Who wants to eat hospital food, right? Well, if
Exactly.
Amory is in charge, you want to eat her food. Because,
Yes.
and then there's Lisa McDowell in Michigan. She's been at Sleuth Radio, talking about how she started a farm on her hospital grounds in Michigan. Greenhouses, right? This is through funding through USDA. We've gotten greenhouses so that we can extend the season. There are so many opportunities, but it's working with others, it's finding the organizations to join with and pushing on those policies that can make a difference.
Wow, you are making me feel hopeful.
Well,
I think
I had a rough time too.
yes.
I'm with you. I worry about the funding, the climate smart agriculture funding that is helping
Yeah.
farmers in my region protect the soil, grow good food, grow good nutritious food. We don't want to lose that funding. We want to make
Yeah.
sure that we have an Affordable Care Act. Because why? Because that's helping farmers stay on their land. Farming is a dangerous occupation. If a farmer gets hurt, they need health care.
Of course.
Well, where are they going to get it? CARE Act was a godsend for many farmers and for many individuals. Me
For
too. It
me,
saved
it
my
was like the
daughter's life.
first time. It was the first time I felt like the government actually did something good for me. I was like, wow, I actually can afford. I was a student. So it was pretty
Right.
dire, slim pickings for me during my student years. And that was so impactful for me.
Our government. It's
Yes.
important for us to see ourselves as part of our democracy. And I think I heard a blues artist sing a song about how democracy is a muscle. You got to use it. You've got to stay engaged. We have to stay engaged. The system functions best.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. Well, let's actually pivot a little. We talked
Okay.
about it in just a tiny bit of our podcast, but I really want to talk about integrating cultural perspectives. So, how do cultural beliefs and traditions influence perceptions of healthy eating? And how can nutrition professionals honor these perspectives? You see this a lot where, like, oh, you can't have your white flour tortillas anymore. You need to have this. Or entire Asian populations that have been eating white rice for forever, you have to switch over to brown rice. How can we be more culturally aware and respectful of these traditions while still promoting health?
Well, because I grew up in New York, I was very lucky. New York City is called the melting pot. And
Mm-hmm.
so from a very young age, I had an opportunity to taste food from other cultures. And I remember seeing Wendell Berry at an Iowa farm meeting. And at the time, my son, was in 5th grade, and there was an international food festival on campus. And I was one of the room mothers that took the students there. Also on campus was a McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the little boys was just nagging me to go to McDonald's. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, we can't do that. We're here to taste cultural foods and to learn from other cultures. And so the earlier we can introduce children to other cultures by way of their food, by way of their dancing, by way of their music, and learn to appreciate what I think has been deemed the other. We are all human beings living on a very small planet, and food sovereignty is the word that describes culturally appropriate foods. So for people to have food sovereignty, it means that you're able to eat and embrace and grow the food that is culturally relevant for you. But
Yes.
it comes with exposure, I think. So I think I was really lucky in that my own children were able to go to a school where there was a lot of international students. So they learned at a very early age, kindergarten, that everybody's the same. And
Yes.
some people eat different foods, but we're going to taste each other's food and we're going to come together and be friends. That's, I think, a key, right?
Oh, yes. I think we can easily achieve world peace just by eating different cultures'
Yes.
foods and
Yes.
really exploring them and having respect for them and not trying to healthify other people's foods. If you look at China, for example, I mean, you have some of the healthiest people in these rural regions of China. Thailand, the people, my people, Mexicans, my husband's people. It's the food is incredible everywhere you go, and especially if you go and travel, you can appreciate so much more each culture and be immersed in it. But certainly if you can't travel, you don't have the money to travel, you can just go to your nearest big city and just have some fun. And really, and I think this is so important for registered dietitians, for medical professionals to respect the everyone's cultural foods and beliefs, because you can help and educate on what foods are going to be more healthful for you and do your body good, but you have to, like I said, not create this morality around food, the good food, the bad food, but really looking at things on a more healthful level. So I
Yeah.
love your perspective on that. And since we're winding down on time, give us a picture of what is the future for nutrition education. What can we look forward to as far as developments that you're foreseeing?
Well, first of all, I think that everybody must enjoy the pleasure of getting their hands on the soil,
Yeah.
right? I think that is the future of nutrition education is growing anything. If you're living in an apartment in a city, get a pot of herbs, smell it, feel the
Mhm.
soil, find ways to interact with food production in that way.
Yes.
I also think that we have to ask critical questions or that media literacy piece. And I would love to see media literacy education married to nutrition education. We need to
Please.
understand vitamins and minerals and protein and carbohydrates. We need to understand how that works in our body. But
Yes.
we also need to understand our food. Where does it come from?
Mm.
Under what conditions? What's in it or on it or not? And these are not easy questions to answer. Trust me, I have spent I remember spending a whole afternoon trying to figure out what farmed fish were fed. As it turns out, it was GMO soy and chicken feathers in
Yes.
pellet form. But it's
Yes.
not easy work just of what am I eating? Where does it come from? What are the unintended consequences of
Yes.
my food choices? Go on. What are the unintended consequences of our farming choices? That many farmers go into the profession with good intention, just as dietitians go into the profession with good intention, right? Most people have
Yes.
good intentions. But for whatever reason, the forces of our culture push us in certain directions. So, starting out with critical thinking, using media literacy, I have a list of questions that I like to use to help people understand that the media messages that we swim in, they're all created.
No.
Everything is uniquely created to influence us, usually for profit. Each medium is unique. You and I are sitting here for a half hour. That's a luxury. If you've got 3 minutes, maybe on TV to tell a story, you can't really scratch the surface very well.
Right.
So each medium is different. Media messages are created again for a specific purpose. It could be education, but a lot of times it's to generate profit. Create their own meaning from media. There are no wrong answers. We
Mm.
come to media messages about our food, about ourselves, with all the history and all the genetics packed into us. No
Yes.
wrong answers. And media defines culture and shapes society.
Mhm.
Media has the ability to change the way we think and feel. So it is very important to recognize its power and to think critically about it.
Yes.
So that's what I would like to leave. That's what I would like to contribute to nutrition education.
Oh my gosh. And you've been doing this for so long and are continuing to do this. That is also the point of this podcast. We really do want to get the truth out there. We want people to be discerning. We want them to peel back that curtain and see the little man who's manipulating things, and then really try to make decisions that are going to benefit us, not the big corporations. I think that's really important. And what I've gotten from this part, but also from this entire episode, is that we do have a lot that's within our control. We can find community gardens. We can participate in local policy and advocate for what we and our children will be best for us. There's so many things within our control. We can be more educated. And that's why you're out here doing what you're doing. And we're so grateful for that. I'm so grateful that you're my new friend. I just
Absolutely.
love these conversations with you, and I'm hoping that we continue them in the future. But for the listeners, tell them how they can find you.
Well, all you have to do is Google Food Sleuth Radio, and there's a whole archive. It is available through the Pacifica Network and on Public Radio Exchange. But if you live in a community that has community radio, and we're hoping to hold on to our public radio, our public media,
Yes.
that radio station can download it for free. It's also available as a podcast. So Apple, Spotify, Transistor, you can go on and you can, I think we've got, oh gosh, I want to say 700 episodes now.
Jeez.
So you can go through and you can scroll, and if something piques your interest, listen. foodsleuth@gmail is my email. So if somebody is dying to have a guest or knows someone that they think I should interview, hey, that's the beauty of community radio.
Yes. Oh, Melinda, I am so grateful to know you. I am
Same.
so incredibly impressed with your work and what you've been doing to help bring out the food truth. And so I just hope you keep it up for as long as possible. And I know that we are going to connect again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time and all the good work you bring, the light you bring to the world.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for tuning into the ANEW Insight Podcast. We are looking forward to our next exciting interview, and we hope you join us next time. Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Insight Podcast. Please remember, the contents shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anew.insight and at anew-insight.com under the ANEW Insight Podcast tab. And follow us on our socials at my.anew.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.